You did an introduction, right?
I did an introduction. It was taken out. That was another thing. My introduction was taken out of the book.
Didn't you, at a certain point, I heard that when you describe his relationship with Mao, you describe him as a butler to some...
Well, I said he is, so I can't remember exactly how I explained it, but in any sort of situation where you have a very high level person and servants around, the servants are seeing things that other people don't have, and as the butler in Remains of the Day,
right,
which is one of my favorite.
That's Ishiguro's book, The Remains of the Day.
Yeah. So I think I sort of saw him as the butler in Remains of the Day, which I think he did not like.
I kind of like it. I think it captures very well the intricate relationship between him and Mao. So I went to one of his lectures. When I was in Chicago, he gave a lecture at Loyola University. And then I think 2 months later, now I suddenly heard that he died. And then the first thing came to my mind was he assassinated?
Yeah.
And then some of other friends, of course, they were very superstitious. They said Moscow Post came to get him.
Yeah.
So, jokes aside, I think that there's been a lot of rumors or some speculation, or there's been some conspiracy theories saying that he was killed.
Right.
So, what do you think?
So I've heard both of those things, and I've also heard Chairman Mao killed him from Chairman Mao's heaven.
Right.
And I don't believe any of that for a minute. And for my own personal explanation is, he was 72 years old. He had not been an active man. He didn't go out and play golf every day, or he didn't take particularly good care of himself. He felt very conflicted about doing the book. He knew he had a great story. He wanted to tell that story, but he knew that that story was not going to be well received at all by the leadership in China. So he was certainly worried about that. So I say he died of his own contradictions. He just, the book came out, then suddenly he was talking. He'd been a recluse almost while the book was being done, and then suddenly he's in the spotlight. He's going around. He's talking to various audiences. He's traveling.
They must have organized a lot of book tours and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure he must have confronted a lot of Mao's supporters, or...
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
I don't know. I mean, my sense is probably that the audiences... Well, you were in one of those audiences. I was actually not in the States at that time.
You were not? You were in China.
Yeah.
I see.
So, I'm assuming that he was speaking to academic audiences who were interested in China, and not necessarily people who were loyalists of Chairman Mao.
You think that he was struggling with all different issues and with the stress that also caused...
Yeah, I think he was really he had to have been under a lot of psychological stress. Yeah.
That's, at least Dr. Thurston has clarified this issue for us.
Yeah, well, I certainly do not believe for a minute that anybody killed him.
Because, it was so sudden. I saw him, he was very healthy, and he was talking about how Mao did not take care of his own health, and how... I just assumed that he would know how to do it himself.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
And he suddenly died of a heart attack, right? Exactly, that's what he warned Mao against, that kind of the illness.
So I can understand why some people thought that Mao might have had a role in all that, but I think not.
Right. But anyway, so after the book came out, were you banned from going to China, or did you receive any threats or anything like that?
So actually, I was in China when the book came out, and
did they know about it? Did the authorities know about your involvement in the book?
Actually, I think probably they didn't, but I do remember my journalist friends telling me about a press conference that was held, and one of the foreign journalists, asked the representative about the book, and the answer was that the book is sheer fabrication written with ulterior motives. But no, I don't know how long it took for them to figure out that I had anything to do with the book. But I went to China for many years afterwards before they did it again.
It hardly had an impact.
No.
Okay.
No. And in fact, I mean, I actually was contacted by some Chinese representatives in the United States. And I said, you may not want to talk to me because I was I worked with the private life of Chairman Mao. And they said, oh no, we understand. We think you were duped. They thought that I was duped.
You were duped into doing this.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
Well, they didn't say into doing it, just I was duped. And I may have been duped by Jason Epstein.
Jason Epstein,
the editor
at Random House.
Yeah.
So during your private conversations with your friends in China, Chinese friends, what were their reaction to the book?
I would say that their reaction was very positive. My friends were basically very liberal people, right? So
right.
I remember one time when one woman was introduced to me, she got down on her knee and took my hand and kissed it for writing that book. And people have said, well, when we finally get political reform in China, that book will be the starting point. We look back and see that book as the starting point of political reform in China, because you told.
I think it had a major impact after it was translated into Chinese. I think it was that Chinese Times, the publishing house, they published it. And I was told that it sold 400,000 copies in the first run or something. So it had a tremendous impact. For a while, I think when I traveled back to China, they wanted me to sneak back some the banned books.
Right.
One of them was was the Chinese version of your book. I want to clarify one more thing. So the Chinese version, there was also some complaint that the Chinese version was a direct translation of your English version, rather than Dr. Li Zhisui's original Chinese manuscript.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Yes. The Chinese version, as it appeared, as it was published, was a translation of the English version.
If Dr. Li Zhisui had a Chinese version, they would have published his original in Chinese, but they didn't do that. They translated your version into Chinese.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So you see you see two different Chinese. You see two different translators.
Oh, there are two different translators.
Well, there's one is when I mentioned the first manuscript that I got from Jason Epstein. That was translated by the American Chinese professor.
Okay.
Then the book came out in English, and when it went to the Chinese publication, it was then translated. That book was translated into Chinese. So I think they had to give everybody credit for what they had done, but it's very unclear, I guess, if you see that there are two translators.
But there
who translated what?
But one thing is clear: we don't have a Chinese version that was written by Dr. Li Zhisui.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
That's great.
Well, to the extent that the book that was published in English is me and Li Zhisui. I mean, that's still his book, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. That was. But I mean,
that was not in Chinese. Yes.
Right. What I meant was, if people have been talking about, he had a Chinese manuscript, but not that one. But it was a translation of what you and Dr. Li Zhisui had done.
Right.
Great.
Right.
So,
I have heard that some people have gone through that page by page, and I think there are discrepancies.
was that because of their lack of understanding of English, or it was some kind of deliberate attempts to remove something? I heard there was, in one version, they removed some parts that are relating to Deng Xiaoping.
Oh, really? Oh.
That's what I read, but I have not read the Chinese version.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't remember that he ever said anything unfriendly to Deng Xiaoping.
Right, I see. That's good. But regardless, your book has such a major impact.
Well, I will say personally that book, it was the hardest thing, not to have the recognition that I felt I deserved was the hardest thing I've ever faced in my professional life. But I also stand by the book. I think that 100 years from now, if somebody goes and reads that book, they will understand. That's the closest thing you'll ever get to really understanding Mao and Chinese politics.
Especially during the last 22 years of Mao's life.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. And what's your latest project? I know that you just published a book about the Dalai Lama's brother, right?
Yes. So I say my role in life is listening to Chinese stories. Now my role in life has expanded to hearing Tibetan stories too. And as a result, actually, of having written The Private Life of Chairman Mao, I was asked to work with the Dalai Lama's older brother, Gyalo Dendrip, to do his autobiography. And that has now been published under the title The Noodle Maker of Kalimpong. And it's not the story, it's not quite the same story as the Private Life of Chairman Mao by a long shot, but I think you get a pretty good sense of what Tibetan life was like.
But why did you focus on his brother?
It was because his brother wanted to write his autobiography.
Why? What is so fascinating about his stories?
What's so fascinating about his story is that he is, even within his own family, he's very unusual in that he was sent to China to study. So he studied in Nanjing under the sponsorship of Chiang Kai-shek, went back to Tibet, and then became a very important person within the sort of political structure of Tibet. And also, after the Dalai Lama fled to India, he played a very significant role in the Tibetan government in exile. He also had been contacted in the mid-1950s by the CIA and was sort of the behind-the-scenes leader of the resistance movement in Tibet. So he played a very important role for that period of Tibetan history.
I think we probably should do another segment on this new book. At least on the cover of this new book, and your name appears side by side with the brother. And I saw this is an Indian version. I've also have the American version, and I hope you are happy with the book. Now I've heard that it's being translated into Chinese.
Yes.
It's being distributed internally.
As I understand it, I have a version of it in Chinese, and it is definitely an internal version.
It's an internal version.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I hope that readers, when you get the chance to read this book, and I am going to read it on my way home. And thank you so much, Dr. Thurston, for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed
Great.
it.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.